podcast is just for me is a way to kind of like get back to like some people, and I feel like just another outlet to um, kind of just kind of give some knowledge back to the creatives here in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
And I think like I was just like starting the podcast too has been really fun to like get to know people and to dive deeper. Like just like the other guests that I've had, we haven't had like a super like sit down intentional like sometimes could be deep conversation like we've worked together,
Yeah.
but sometimes it's like about work, and sometimes we're not like sitting down and getting to know each other like on that different levels.
Yeah,
It's like,
it's
all
like it's
right.
people.
Yeah, it's people. It's like and honestly too, when you're just meeting people, sometimes if you aren't hearing specific thoughts, perspectives that they've had, or about their experience working with you or meeting with each other. So this is kind of like that platform to like for me, but also for other people to like
Yeah.
connect with each other. But yeah, I guess introduce yourself and what guess what you do.
Yeah. Okay. And I look at you.
Yeah, like I mean,
Okay.
conversation.
Okay, well, my name is Uzoma Ngwu. Most people call me Uzo. And I think the easiest way to describe myself is a multidisciplinary artist. And I would say the mediums in which I do the most work would be film and animation and illustration. And then I would also say like event curation and arts programming is also a really big part of my practice now with Zoma House.
For sure.
And so I'm the founder of two creative businesses, Zoma Studios, which is an animation studio, and Zoma House, which is a community art studio, event venue, and storefront in Uptown. And so I feel like a lot of my work falls under those two buckets of like Zoma Studios, I'm telling stories, I'm making films, or Zoma House, I'm creating experiences around art and like bringing artists together.
For sure. How do you balance it all? how do you
The question,
how do
the
you
question.
take everything that you're passionate about or interested in, and you have so many different like things that as an artist, and also just like bringing the community together. Like, how do you balance like creating as an artist and then also like a community, like program or like someone who organizes?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
A lot of to-do lists, but I also think the older because I think I've always had a tendency to do a lot. Ever since I was a kid in high school, I was in like a million activities. In college, I was in a million activities. And I think in adulthood, I immediately wanted to do a million things. And in a way, I still do a lot. But I think what's been helpful for me is to prioritize, like, what are the most important things for me to focus on right now? And I think for me, that's been the short film that I've been producing with Zoma Studios, and then Zoma House, and just creating events and experiences. Because I think there's a lot more I know I feel like I do a lot already, but I'm always like, there's more I could be doing. But I do think I intimately know the relationship between burnout, and I think for me, I try to mitigate that by just being very intentional about what I prioritize. And so even though, focusing on a film and focusing on like an arts community space are not two small things to do, like there's a lot of things within those two things that takes a lot of work and time, but I think it helps narrow my focus when I keep it to just, those are my two like big projects. I'll do small things here and there when I have the time, but yeah, I think, and I'm still figuring it out. Actually, let me even say that. Like I don't even fully have the balance yet. But I think what's been helpful for me is really thinking about like what matters the most to me. What do I want to give out into the world at this moment in time? Because I also believe that like not everything needs to happen at once. Like I'm interested in a lot of things, music being one of them. I perform and I sing, and I grew up singing, and I've performed at open mics before, and music is such a big part of my life, but it's not like I'm trying to become a performing artist right now, Like I think it's something that when the time is right, I will step into that role of performing and singing more, but it was an intentional choice of like, that's not my main thing. My main thing is animation and Zoma House, building the space. So Zoma Studios and Zoma House. So yeah, prioritizing, I think, is like my number one thing keeping me sane. Because when I used to say yes to everything, a lot of burnout very, very, very quickly.
For sure. It's like you have to be selective or else you'll kind of like spread yourself thin, like focusing on everything at once. And, I think a lot of these practices kind of involve a lot of energy and a lot of time. And also from like the outside in, I feel like I just like viewing like what you're putting out. It feels very intentional with every
Thank
event,
you.
every every kind of thing you're doing with your film, and so yeah, that's awesome to like to see from the outside.
Thank you. I
Yeah,
appreciate
for
it.
sure. Yeah, I guess how because I guess with that too, how important is it to have like a team surrounding you? Because I know you have like a
Mm.
team at Zoma House and also with your studio. Like, take me from the beginning of like maybe how did that team come about from starting your studio
Yeah.
and you Zoma House? You know, how important is that?
Yeah. Well, first thing I'll say, I think having a team is essential. I have found there are some people who being solo artists, solo creators is like their sweet spot, but well, hot take, I don't think that should be anyone's
Sure.
sweet spot.
Right.
Like I think we all need to be
Yeah.
at least a little bit collaborative. But I think for me, like I have found it an essential part of my creative practice, like with the film that I'm working on. So I founded Zoma Studios 3 years ago. So I had just graduated from college in like the end in 2023, and at the end of that year, I had founded the studio. But I was already working on the short film before I actually like founded the studio. And immediately once I wrote the script and got feedback from like professors and friends, I started reaching out to people being like, hey, I'm working on this thing, would you be interested? And that was how I actually started building the team, was just like cold emails, cold DMs
Yeah.
of artists whose work that I admired, who had many, actually all of which I'd never met before. It was just like online connections
Yeah.
and people who I liked what I saw and I wanted to have them contribute to my film. And so I was like slowly building the team that way. And at some point, I did like an open call. People applied. There was a couple synergetic moments where people reached out to me and they were like, "Oh, I see this project. I do X thing. I would love to contribute." And there was quite a couple times where that actually worked. And I brought on people who had reached out to me. We had a call, and then I felt like it was a good fit. And so that was kind of how I slowly built the team for Zoma Studios. I will say though, Zoma House is the teamwork is a little bit different because I think with Zoma Studios, I started that company, that film completely by myself. I wrote the script myself. I, structured the organization or the company myself. And so I, even though I have a team around me, there's still a lot that it's like I'm the only one doing it on this team. Zoma House is different because I feel like we built Zoma House together. Like I think I had the idea of like bringing us together, but like to actually execute said idea, that took everyone. That took everyone that's on the team right now. And Zoma House is a collaborative of 3 different artist organizations coming together. And so Zoma House comprises of Zoma Studios, the Heartcraft Collective, and Seat at the Table. And so when I was first, because I should mention as well, we got the space through the Vibrant Storefronts grant initiative. And first of all, the grant is just super cool.
Yeah.
It's like a grant through the city where they pair vacant commercial properties with artists and art organizations to like revitalize the arts in the Twin Cities. And I remember when I stumbled upon this grant, I was like, this almost feels too good to be true.
Right.
Like, what is this?
Yeah.
And initially I was like, I could just apply with just my studio and just create like maybe like an office space of some sort or just like a studio space for the animation work that I was doing. But then I realized that I knew I wanted this to be like a community space. And I knew that if I wanted it to be a community space, I wanted it to be a community lived. I didn't want to be the only person trying to bring this thing to life. And so I started looking at like who's doing what in the city. The 2 orgs that I brought on were orgs that I had attended their events before, and I was like, I like what y'all are doing. Would you be interested in like partnering on this and like building this new thing together? And so I think the main difference in team building with those 2 is that Zoma Studios was like myself for a big chunk of the beginning, and then I started bringing on a team. But Zoma House, I feel like I just had the idea, and then from there it was like teamwork and working with other people, which I know for a fact in both contexts, the film and Zoma House, I would not have been able to execute either one completely alone.
Right.
And so for that, I'm like working with the team is honestly non-negotiable, I'll even say. Like I don't even think in my practice moving forward, I would want to create something entirely on my own. Like there's some steps of the process I would like to do on my own, but like from start to finish, I don't think there's anything that I would only want to be, I don't think there's anything I'd want to be the only person
Right.
doing it. Yeah.
And that probably would lead to more burnout, obviously. So
Exactly.
you can like lean on other people. But, like,
Yes.
it's cool for like the Zoma Studios. You like put something out there and it attracted like people to come and connect with you. And then for sure, like on the Zoma House, you're able to connect with the organizations that you believe in, values like wise, like connected, and then helped you connect with the right people for you. Yeah, I guess too. Like, how does it for like Zoma Studios or Zoma House? How do you continue to build that relationship and trust with people that you haven't met before? Collaborators or community people who want to like believe in the same vision as you or same goals, and to like get them on board. And for either or, I guess wherever you want to start, like that's obviously a transition. Or
Yeah.
for sure.
That's a good question. That's a really good question. I think in both contexts, leading with the why, like why am I doing this thing? Why are we doing this thing? I think really helps people feel part of a larger mission. Because I think with my film, like for example, when I would interview people for the project, it was very important that I, explain what this project is, what it means, and what I'm hoping that it'll represent for like Nigerian communities and diaspora communities and West African communities, and just like first generation communities broadly. But I think people like feeling like they're part of something with purpose. At least the people that I like to work with.
Right, yeah.
The people I like to work with like to feel like they're contributing to something purposeful. And I think in both contexts, I feel like I'm creating work that is very rooted in purpose and is very rooted in something bigger than just myself and just like my own individual practice. Like for the film, like it's a story based on my own experiences, but I think it's filling a gap in the animation landscape where there aren't that many films from African perspectives or telling stories set in Africa. And so for me, in that context, it's beyond just like we're making a film. It's like we're filling a gap. We're creating something that we don't often see within this medium, within this industry. And so I think that to me is like the larger purpose of the film, and also just the types of films I hope to create even after this first short film. So that's one. Like in the film context, the purpose of like representation, it's a big thing for me. And then with Zoma House, I think the purpose of like, what I love about Zoma House is for so long before Zoma House, my creative practice was very digital. I was an illustrator. I would do digital animation or online. I built so much of an online, I built like an online following from the work that I created, but of course it's like, it was people from school, but also it was just like, there's a lot of people who follow me I've never met before in my life,
Exactly.
Yeah, and I went to school out of state and I came back home, and I think coming back home to Minnesota, I almost felt like, even though I grew up here, I almost felt like disconnected from the creative communities here because, as a kid, I wasn't tapped in at all to the creative things happening. And then when I was like, in college, I wasn't even here. And so when I came back, I was like, I feel like I'm starting from scratch. And with Zoma House, I really appreciate that it is so rooted in a physical space. And I think, to me, the purpose of Zoma House, I mean, our mission statement is we aim to serve as a gathering space for Twin Cities artists and community members to create, connect, and collaborate. To create, connect, and collaborate through art-based programming and events. And so our mission is literally the space itself and having a space that people can come to. And I think a lot of artists resonate with wanting that space. And I think everyone on the team probably knows what it feels like to maybe be othered in other creative spaces, either in the Twin Cities or in other spaces beyond. Because we do have such a strong focus on platforming like BIPOC and Black artists in the Twin Cities in a way that maybe we haven't always seen or haven't always, or haven't seen enough of, And so I think that it's very easy to align yourself with an organization like that when you yourself are an artist, you yourself are an artist of color, and you want to not only platform yourself, but platform your community. And so I think that has been a big reason why I feel like it has been so just like synergetic with me and the Zoma House team especially, because we all share that same goal of like, how can we continue to bring arts programming to Minneapolis, and how can we continue to uplift and platform and support BIPOC artists in the Twin Cities? And I think that's a goal that all of us can get behind.
Yeah, I think it's like great too because like it just helps people get involved and have a sense of belonging and purpose, like you
Yes.
said, like in a physical space, or like you said, like a third space. I feel
Hmm.
like maybe a lot of maybe creative people are were like you, maybe living online digitally, and
Yes.
maybe are seeking more of that physical like community, and being able to attend events in person is, I think, something that's going to be like increasing or like on the rise. Like
I
I feel like,
agree.
I don't know, for me, like I'm not really, I kind of tend to stay off my phone more because I feel like I don't know, maybe I get a little bit of anxiety when I'm online.
Real.
But
So
but
fair.
it's so crazy because we have to like be on it, which is cool. Like it's part of, I think, having the platform. It's just like cool because we can still reach other people with our art. But at the
Yeah.
same time, it's just like, gotta have that like balance between like um, being online and then being like in person, like what is it, like present.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I agree.
yeah.
I agree. No, and I agree too. I think
Yeah.
there's going to be an uptick in just like, I mean, not that events programming went anywhere, but I just
Yeah.
feel like it's gonna like really explode. Especially, I've seen the argument that with the
Yeah.
increase in like AI and
Mhm.
people not even being able to tell what's real on the internet, they'll be craving more like tangible things that, you know, exist offline for that exact reason.
Yeah, I think too, like maybe we can get a little bit desensitized to like stuff that's being put out on the
Yes.
internet. Even though like I think like just social media like booming, I think that has like, and just the algorithm of like things being constantly fed through the machine.
Yeah.
Now like people are just searching for more like community and purpose and
Hmm.
connecting with people who have a similar perspective or values, and connecting and helping each other grow. Like I love how you guys are doing like the office hours, of like people just come
Thank
in and just like
you. I'm so
whatever
excited
you're
about
working on. Like,
it.
and I know Kish too, so
Oh,
Kish,
dope.
yeah,
Yeah.
he actually DP'd on my campaign too.
No
So yeah,
way.
I love his work, and he loves to shoot on film. So I'm like, hey, why don't you come be a part of the project? So yeah, I saw that
Yes.
he's doing the Polaroid stuff. So
Yeah.
no, I love that you're putting on events. I guess like going off of that, the Zoma House, like how did you go about with like what kind of events you want to put on? Because I know you have like music and art,
Yeah.
all these other things, and it's like attracting a lot of different kinds of people.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think the space is very multidisciplinary, very multi-purpose. When we were applying for the grant, we basically framed our like three discipline pillars as media art, visual art, and craft-based art. And that was just aligned with like the
Right.
three organizations coming together. But like you said, we have music events now, and I think that because which I will say actually, I think a lot of it is we program around like what our team is already doing. We have some musicians on the team, we have filmmakers on the team, we have craft-based artists on the team, we have visual artists on the team. And so I think it's really another benefit of working with the team
Right.
is like other people can bring their own creative sensibilities to the programming that we do. Like for example, like I work in film/animation, but more so the slash animation. And so like Brandon and Jamond are like fantastic, like with the camera and editing and like a lot of our social media is created and edited and shot by them. And I think just back to the programming thing though, yeah, I feel like it's very much just aligned with like what our team already naturally likes. And so we started with those three main disciplines, but it's kind of just expanded into whatever we feel is interesting and exciting for us. But I would say, based on what we've done recently, music, film, are big ones. One of our event series, it's an artist talk, and so that one is a little bit more like we invite people, regardless of discipline, artists regardless of discipline, into the space to talk about their work. But yeah, I think now that we're a couple months in, I think we're kind of just leaning into the multidisciplinary nature of it
Sure.
instead of like locking ourselves to just like one or even instead of locking ourselves to the three
Yeah.
disciplines we came in with. I think we're just expanding naturally based on what our team already likes to do and what our team is already just like naturally good at.
Right. Yeah, I think it's good too, because everyone just kind of feels like they can like give creative ideas or input,
Yes.
and everyone's just like on the same page as long as it like, you know, kind of like fits within that.
Exactly.
It's super cool though, and also you do like workshops too, or is that something you're expanding?
Yes. So the space is available for rentals, and so we've had some organizations rent the space to host their own workshops. We haven't hosted any like or we haven't produced like workshops of our own, but that's also definitely one of the things that's on our list of like eventuallys or like classes, class series. There's this I took a lot of inspiration from some like creative co-working spaces in New York, actually. And there's a space, I believe it's called the Drawing Room in New
Did you go
York.
to school in New York?
No, I went to school in Cambridge.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I've been in New York. I
Okay.
did an internship there out there, and so I spent a summer there, and I've been back a couple of times, and so I know the city quite well.
Right.
But yeah, the drawing room, I don't know what they call them exactly, but it's basically like curriculums for artists who aren't students anymore, but they want the structure of like a week by week workshop or class. And so I take a lot of inspiration from that, because I think as someone who's not a student, but who does love the structure of like every week I'm gonna come and do this with these people, that's something that is really interesting to me. And also, I work at a high school, and so I love working with students. And so I think we would eventually, and there's other people on the team who also are like teachers or who have been
Right.
teachers previously or worked at daycares. And so I think almost all of us have youth work experience. And so I know one of the things we're hoping to expand into one of these days is like, I would love to do like summer programs for children. Like I have this idea for like an animation related one. But thankfully there's a lot of dope organizations who do like arts-based summer programs. Like Film North is one of them. They do a lot of really cool like film and animation even stuff for students in the summer. But yeah, that's definitely something I would love to expand into with Zoma House, is like more classes and workshops. Because right now it's mostly just events, which is great, and I love it. But yeah, it's definitely part of the vision to also have like educational experiences for artists in the Twin Cities.
Right. No, I resonate with that too, because I feel like after you like graduate college too, like everyone's looking to like expand their knowledge even more, and just be like people who are like me too, like lifelong learners, like who are constantly
Yes.
just, I don't know, developing their craft and getting different skill, or building off different skill sets. And I think like for me, the past maybe like year, I've been just trying to connect with people to like learn, and also too just like that's why like with like Filet Studios, I've been wanting to like build more mentorship, because I feel, I don't know, I think there's like a past shift for me, realizing, because I've never really been like an educator or someone who wants to like do events or anything like that. But I think this past year I've been on so many like production sets.
Yeah.
And what I've just like noticed too is like there are a lot of people who are trying to get into like the film industry or some part of like production, but they feel like there's not really like there's like a gap, or there's like a barrier to like
Yeah.
entry, and I'm not really sure like especially like in Minneapolis, like how to like fill that. And like that's what I'm trying to like build Filet Studios as, is like helping bridge that gap by
Yeah.
getting, especially like with the productions that Filet Studios does. I normally try to bring on one person who is new, who I haven't worked with before, who wants to get into it, and then also people who are really experienced. So at least one person can like learn from really experienced people, and like, continue to have that on.
That's a good way to do it.
You know, and then with the like internship and like mentorship programs that we're doing, you know, hopefully getting like a smaller focus group so we can like help accelerate their growth.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think people are like seeking to get into the industry but don't know like where to go. So I really
Yeah.
resonate with like hosting like educational like workshops that people can like constantly like build a community within that workshop, but also like continue to learn things and further themselves in whatever discipline they have or practice.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, no, I agree. I feel like it's such an interesting thing being a creative here. I literally was just talking to one of my friends because he was hating on Minnesota
Yeah.
and just being like, what? There's artists here.
Yeah.
Like, first of all,
Chill.
you know, like, actually, yes, quite a few, actually, quite a lot. But I think it is interesting being an artist here. And I think even something that I kind of fell victim to when I was growing up here, I didn't even realize all the creative things that were like right at my fingertips, having been from Minnesota. And then I left. And when I was in college, I spent a year in Paris in study abroad, and I did an internship in New York, and I spent a summer in LA. And so I was like all over the place in college, so much so that I was like certain I was not moving back home. Yes, I'm leaving. But then I did come home, and I'm so glad I did, because so much of the magic that has been happening with Zoma House and just so many other things just wouldn't have happened if I just up and left right after graduating. But I say all of this to say that I think the talent is here, and like there's so much creative energy here. And I think like I think something that I think about a lot is like, how can we, like the stuff that I'm doing and stuff that you're doing too, like how can we create an ecosystem that doesn't just like support artists to send them off somewhere else? Like how can we create an ecosystem that like keeps them here? And like how can we build Minnesota's creative ecosystem and be a part of that, like making the Twin Cities or just Minnesota largely a space that people actually want to be, you know? And I think I don't know the answer to it by any means, but it's something I think about a lot, because as someone who was so set on leaving and who has now started to like plant my roots here, and I'm so glad that I did, I just wonder like what kind of infrastructure do we need to compete with like the LAs and the New Yorks and the Parises, you know? Because the talent is very clearly here. I think we're not culturally known yet as like a creative hub in the way LA or New York is, which I'm like, understandably so, considering the industries that are in both of those states. But yeah, I think about that a lot, and how I think it's possible to build the creative life of your dreams here. Maybe that's a hot take. It might be a hot take.
Yeah.
I think it is possible.
Yeah.
And it is something that I'm still figuring out, but I'm also just wondering like how can like the work that we do support that? And even if people eventually do leave, how can we contribute to a Minnesota that people want to come back to and like still see creative potential within? That's something I think about a lot.
No,
honestly.
me too. Yeah, I honestly think about that a lot, because I feel like a lot of creative people that I'm like surrounded by have had that conversation. Like, oh, should I leave?
Yes.
Or you know, how long am I staying here for? They always have that like, oh, I might be here for the next few years.
Yeah.
But I feel like you're not.
Right.
I feel like you're staying here. But I've also had those thoughts too, and you know, like
same.
it's just I feel like, I know this is kind of a weird example, but like I watched like the Genius, like Kanye West documentary.
Yes.
Where he like moved where things were happening and then really like hustled to like be in that where things were happening in the circle.
Yeah.
But I think like to offset that, I feel like you said, there are a lot of amazing creatives here in Minneapolis, and we are building something unique. And it might not yet be at that level of New York and LA, but I feel what people are like saying now is they're starting to feel the community and how supportive and how much talent is here. And also too, I feel especially with either individuals or creative agencies, like people are getting hired from the Midwest too. So it's like, you know, you can definitely build a sustainable creative career here and have this be your home base. Like you don't really necessarily need to move out to the coast unless you are feeling like that drive to like go experience and be like, all right, like go experience that. Like, if you want to come back, just know like there's a community here that's gonna support you. And I feel that's what I've been feeling lately, at least. So.
Yeah. No, and I think too, like if you want to work in Hollywood, like there's only one place you can go.
If you know, on movies, like you might.
Yeah, you want to work on Broadway? Okay, I get it. There's only one place you can go, but yeah, I agree with that, and just like, it just depends, I guess, on what people's dreams are. Because I also think sometimes I wonder too, like, I don't necessarily subscribe to the belief that like, how do I say this? I think it's maybe it's a hot take,
like,
but I think
number two.
hot take number two. I feel like at some point in time, Minnesota could be a cultural and artistic capital of the United States and the world. Whoa, hot take. Because I guess what I'm saying is like, to my comment of like, if you want to go to Hollywood, go there. If you want to go to Broadway, go there. I don't see Minnesota as like a lesser version of either of those two places. Someone could probably argue with me that it is, but like, I guess I imagine that someone with dreams as big as working in Hollywood could in a way manifest that here. Obviously not like the way the industry is currently set up, no, like you're not gonna have a Hollywood blockbuster shot here right now. But I guess maybe what I'm saying is that's my long term thought. Like I don't see it as like a Minnesota is like a because I know sometimes the argument is like, well, it's less competitive here because there's less like people here, which I'm like fair and that is good. But I guess I don't see it as like a. I don't see it as like a. Like when people have big dreams, LA, New York, that's where they go.
Yep.
And I guess I don't see Minnesota as like, I don't see it as a place that you have to settle. Let me say it like that. Like I feel like I have very huge creative ambitions and a lot of people have told me like, oh, you should go, one of those places. And I don't necessarily like disagree. I'll probably make my way there in some capacity, but like I think I'm very invested in like, building that here. I think that was a very long-winded way of saying, I'm invested in building that here and supporting all those big creative dreams here. Yeah. That's basically what I was trying to say. I said that into a million words.
Yeah, I feel like too, like you said at the beginning of that, what you want out of life or journey-wise, and I feel like I have some creative friends too who have pivoted too, or things came into their life that were like, all right, I gotta move to Houston. I gotta move to LA, and it might be personal and career, and you just never know where like life takes you. But like for some people, it's here. For some people, they in the next 3 to 5 years they might have an opportunity. But I feel like while you're here, you can build what you're trying to build and try to have a sustainable career here. Or if you're looking to get into movies, like maybe do the short films here that we can do. And I shot a short film last summer.
Very cool.
So cool. I was a DP on that, but I've never shot a short film, and so I've done just a lot of like commercial work, music videos. So like short film's a different platform for me, and it was a lot more intentional and a little bit slower than like most of the other shoots that I've done. But I think like you can still build that portfolio, and still if you're looking to get into like movies, like continue to do more short film work, and then you never know who's gonna see your stuff.
It's true.
And then like
it's true.
All right, like hey, I love your DP work.
Right.
I don't know.
Exactly.
I think people underestimate you also have to be in LA to do that thing.
Yeah.
Like why not build it? Why not do that here? Why not take accountability?
Yes.
And because I feel like maybe people feel like they're stuck and they can't. Obviously there are resources that need to be involved to do those things.
Of course.
There are grants and organizations who want to invest into the art and community as well. So it's not impossible.
It's not impossible. And I think with what we're both doing, we're hoping to show it's not impossible, and that there's space here, there's community here. And it also makes me think of something one of my old professors told me. Because I was having a conversation with her about like, oh, I don't know, should I move?
Right.
And and she was saying that there's actually a lot of power in like planting those roots locally before you, like if it is your goal to leave Minnesota, power to you. But she was talking about how there's power in planting those local roots before you go, so that way once you leave and say you move to LA, you move to New York, you make it big, the people back home will also root for you and uplift you and platform you because you came from here. Right. And this idea of like people like to champion those who are from the place they're from, and versus like if you don't build any like roots here and you go make it big in New York, of course people will still celebrate you, but there's something about having that like homegrown support and love. And so that's something I think about a lot too, of like no matter where my creative journey takes me, it means a lot to me that there are people that I know that are in my neighborhood, that are in my network, that are right here where I grew up, that I know will, no matter where I am, will support the work that I'm doing. And I think that is also super meaningful. And it's nice to think that you could leave and the community, the state would still want to like champion you and platform you because you came from there. And it's like a pride thing too, like, oh, this person directing the next Hollywood blockbuster is from Minnesota. It's like, I think that's a really cool thing too.
Yeah, I think too, it's like, you have to kind of be grateful for what we have here, because when you do move, you have to like plant, you have to find a new community, plant your seeds somewhere else, and that can be another transition for the next 3 years. I feel like, I moved here in Minneapolis in 2021. I have family here, so I've been back and forth.
Okay.
But it was during like right after COVID, so it was a really really tough time to
Yes.
like connect with people. But it
I
took
can
me like
imagine.
it took me a few years to get integrated, and I
Yeah.
think a lot of people don't understand like when you do move to a new city, you have to. Yeah, it's gonna take a little bit of time. You might get a little
Yeah.
homesick, and I feel like
Yeah.
you can't take it for granted for what we have here. But I also know there's gonna be people support you, like you said. So
Yeah. Wait, so did you grow up in Minnesota or no?
I like to say I'm from Iowa, which I don't want.
What's wrong with Iowa?
I
Rep your city.
yeah, I like Iowa. It's just a different pace.
Yeah, I
And
can see that.
I think it's a great like state too, or depending on what city you're in. But like, it basically is like family focused. That's what I get from it.
Sure.
Like, there's not a huge creative scene, especially
Mm,
like the what stuff that I'm doing now.
yeah.
It's not there's not a lot of that. So I
Yeah.
had to move to a city that um, had that kind of industry focus.
Yeah.
So that's why like I moved, and it was like end of COVID. So I thought, oh, this could be a good chance to like move out of my home city.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I always like tell people you do have to like travel outside your home city
You
to
do.
see like what is out there.
Yeah.
Because right after college, I was like planning to stay in a small
Yeah.
town, small city. But I think for people who do grow up in small towns, small cities, once you start to like develop your skills, especially like personally for me, I kind of outgrew that space and
Yeah.
what was happening in that city and was ready for more. And
Yeah.
like you kind of have to take those risks sometimes. So like,
I
and the
agree.
next city was all right, Minneapolis.
Yeah.
Let's go there.
Yes.
And yeah, it took me a while, but as I like connected with a lot more creatives and filmmakers, I was able to like also exponentially like grow in being just surrounded by so many talented people and being
Yeah.
a sponge, but also taking accountability and directing my own stuff. It's
Yes.
as long as you can kind of balance those, but those like the people will also help you get to the point where you want to be. So
It's true.
yeah.
It's true.
So yeah, super grateful for the people here that I've met along the way. That's like,
Yeah.
helped me get to here, and yeah, it's been so good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I love that.
yeah.
I love that.
Going back to your film, I want to talk a little bit about that
Yes.
because you director, producer, but also do animation as well. So I guess tell me a little bit about what your film is about and how it came about because it's been what a couple, 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
Years in the making.
3 years.
Okay.
By the end of this year, it'll be 4.
Well, that's crazy.
Like a whole college
Yeah.
degree to make a film. Yes. Okay. Well, I'll start with what the film is
Sure.
about. So it follows this Nigerian American teenager, Ogechi, and she's traveling back to Nigeria for her grandfather's burial ceremony. And a big part of not just Nigerian culture, but a lot of African cultures throughout the continent is masquerade culture. And masquerades are these costumed figures that have different meanings depending on where you see one or in what context you see one. And so at a burial ceremony, there's a ton of masquerades. And so our protagonist, Ogechi, is at this burial ceremony for her grandfather, and the masquerade tradition is one that she's maybe vaguely aware of, but hasn't seen so many up close in this way. And so this is like a moment of cultural dissonance where she's a little bit like, what is going on here? And in this moment where she's experiencing this cultural dissonance, instead of being open and receptive to this like different aspect of her culture, she's immediately afraid of this different aspect of her culture. And so it's actually a horror short film, and it intentionally uses horror as a tool to interrogate Western perceptions of indigenous African cultural and spiritual traditions. And so even though our protagonist is Nigerian American, because of her American upbringing, it distorts the way she sees her Nigerian culture. And so throughout this film, she goes on 2 separate journeys. 1, the journey of deepening her cultural understanding, and 2, the journey of navigating the grief of losing her grandfather. But what she doesn't realize is that those 2 journeys will actually intersect. And this film was largely inspired by my own experiences in Nigeria. I went to school there for a year in high school. I've been there quite a few times throughout my life. And I was there in 2021 for my grandfather's burial ceremony. And it was my first time experiencing a traditional Igbo burial ceremony back home in Nigeria. And I remember like sitting there under this canopy tent and seeing all these masquerades. And I just had this like feeling that there's a story here that needs to be told. And I remember, and I'm so grateful I had the foresight back then, but I took a bunch of photos and videos of Nigeria, and I was like, this is gonna serve as reference for something one day.
You're plotting.
You know, exactly, I was plotting. And then 2 years later, literally, and then 2 years later, I wrote the script, and I also now have this library of photos and videos of this place that served as like a foundation for the visual building, the visual world building for this animated short film. But yeah, so that's what it's about. And I think I'm Igbo Nigerian, and so the film deals with a lot of like Igbo cultural aspects and religious and spiritual practices. And I'm very interested in kind of unearthing and spotlighting those indigenous traditions from Africa, because I think because of colonization, so many of them were just demonized or just completely erased. And I think that is really sad. And I think that there's so much that has been lost because of colonization, obviously not just in Africa, but in so many places around the world. And I'm really interested not only in like platforming these traditions, but also in a way that roots them in a modern context. Because I don't want to treat them as like, oh, this is how things were. Like, I'm going to talk about it, but I'm going to talk about it in the past. Like, it's important to me to talk about it because the film is set in present day.
It's like the true experience.
Exactly. And so it's important to me that I talk about these like, you know, indigenous African spiritual and religious and cultural traditions in a way that is rooted in the modern day, in a way that legitimizes it as a practice that is not extinct and that people still believe in. And so I think that's something, as my film practice develops, I'm really interested in that, and just like exploring Igbo cosmology and just like indigenous cultures across Africa. I just think there is so much there, especially in animation. Like, I feel like there's so much from the continent that can be pulled for like fantasy projects, historical projects. Like, the continent is rich and ready for people to tell stories from it. And so I'm not the only one doing it too. Like, there's so many amazing animation studios out there telling stories from the continent. So I'm grateful to be part of what feels like this like growing sea of creators creating work in animation about the continent. But yeah, so that's what the film is about. And it was very inspired by my own experiences. And I'm noticing that I tend to incubate ideas. Like, this idea I sat on for 2 years before I even wrote the script. You know, it is a little while. It's a long time, you know? And then when I finally wrote the script, it was kind of go from there. Like, I wrote the script in January of 2023, and I think I brought someone on to work on the film like a month or two later. And it just like slowly started from there. Exactly. The ball was just rolling, and it's still rolling. Yeah. And I'm hoping that we'll finish the film this year, because it just feels like the right time. 4 years, it just feels like the right time to like close that chapter. And I'm also I want people to experience it. Like, that's the thing too that I'm so excited about, is people being able to watch it and to get their feedback. And I just feel like I haven't seen a lot of what I'm creating out there in the animation space. And so that excites me too, of like, you know, again, filling the gaps and creating work that addresses a need that hasn't been prioritized in the mainstream animation landscape, and that need being telling stories from the continent of Africa. So, yeah.
You just showed your film at Zoma House, right?
Yes, yeah.
What was that? What were some of those like initial like reactions or feedback that you got that you didn't really, I guess, expect, that were like, you know?
Yeah. So I screened the rough cut, and so we're about to start. We haven't animated it yet, but we have the storyboards and we cut it together. We recorded most of the voice actors, so it was basically like the skeleton version of the film, which was really cool to get people's feedback on, because I had shown people the animatic slash rough cut before, but it's always been like I'll email you a link and then you give me feedback. I hadn't yet screened it in front of like a room full of people, and I think I was on cloud nine after that screening. I was just like,
Did you feel nervous beforehand, or
a
what
little
was
bit, because
Okay.
I just wasn't sure how people would receive it. I also think, if I'm being honest, like my confidence level in the work has ebbed and flowed over the last 3 years, and I think recently because I just think when you work on something for so long,
You care a lot.
you care a lot about it, and you're so close to it that you kind of can't really see it for what it is because you've just been like
Right.
tunnel vision the whole way through. And I think I was suffering from that a little bit and just being like, I don't know if this is any good. Like what do I do?
Yeah.
But I think having that screening gave me the final confidence boost and validation I needed that like what I'm creating, one, people get it.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm not just like saying these big abstract things that no one can grasp. People understand what I'm trying to say. And people are actually like resonating with the themes. And so I think seeing the audience's reaction to it, hearing people laugh, that was the best part. Like there was a couple moments where I was like, people just like, it was just, the whole audience was laughing. And I was like, wow, am I funny?
I guess I am.
Yeah, you know, like, so that was like, that felt so good of like, wow, the laughs and then the cries. And I think seeing that like range of emotional reaction made me just be like, wow, this is something that is dynamic. I also think like people ask questions after it as well, and people just ask really good questions about the work. And I think I needed that, honestly.
Yeah.
I needed that screening just to like remind myself that what I'm creating matters and that it resonates with people. And at the end of the day, no matter where the film goes, like I'm creating something that people can connect to. And I feel like that is my ultimate goal as a filmmaker, that I can create something where people can walk away and leave changed, or their perspective expanded, or it leads to a broader conversation. Like I think that's what excites me the most about being a filmmaker, is actually saying something. Because I feel like, maybe hot take number 3, there's a lot of films in the landscape. Well, let me not say a lot. There's a couple films that I've seen where I'm like, you're not really saying anything. Like you're not really, I go into the theater and I leave and I'm like, okay, like this looks great, great acting, and maybe that's just a personal preference thing, but I like stories that they just have something to say, you know? Like if I just need to sit and be entertained, I can. There's a film I watched recently where I was very entertained, but I left being like, okay, like,
What's after this?
you know, like,
You go watch and you like you don't take a lot.
exactly. And I just, I would not want to be a filmmaker where I create something and people leave with nothing, nothing,
right.
not even bad,
Right.
nothing. I'm like, I didn't make anything good.
Yeah.
I didn't make anything worthwhile if you have nothing to say, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I kind of like just like what's happening today, like the Obsession movie. Like I think it's
yes.
it's just sparking a lot of, I don't know, curiosity.
Yes,
It's just like
exactly.
disrupting the industry a little bit,
Mhm.
and there's just a lot of conversation happening around it. And
Yeah.
I think like that film for sure did that. Like, all right, people like left like, all right, now people are like having conversations about it, you know. So like,
Yeah.
I think like as a filmmaker, that's super important to
I agree.
not only the why, but like the value you're giving people of like
Mhm.
deeper thought or
Mhm.
curiosity or inspiration.
Yeah.
Doing or taking what you made and hopefully that experience they can take a little bit and hopefully whatever creative field they're doing, I guess use that as like a catalyst for something else.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also think it's important within the medium of animation specifically, because I feel like, just thinking about the animated films I grew up on as a kid, I feel like a lot of films from those same studios are creating media that is just like sanitized. And I am a firm believer that children should have media that is just for them. But I also believe that children are smarter than we give them credit for, and like they can handle darker themes and films that actually like have something to say. Like I think of The Incredibles, which I think stands the test of time. It's so good.
Yeah.
And it's a movie that kids can watch and enjoy, but it also does have like darker themes, and it adults can watch it too. And I really value and appreciate that film because of the way it balances light and dark themes. And I feel like a lot of animation, one, neglects the fact that not just kids watch it, but two, it feels so, it's like surface level. And if it is really just for kids, I like get it, kind of. But I do think kids can handle depth, and kids can handle a story making a bold claim about something. So that's something that I think about a lot too, that I think, like to your point, like, yeah, those after movie conversations are so important. And I think especially in animation, because I feel like the medium is ready for more just like mature storytelling. And it exists, don't get me wrong.
Sure.
Plenty of great films, animated films that have mature themes and stories to tell. But it's interesting that the legacy studios, I feel like, are shying away a little bit from those like, darker, deeper themes in their movies.
You know what's crazy? So like one of my favorite movies is Shrek.
Ah, that's a great movie.
But like watching it as a kid and watching it like as an adult, I'm like, dang, to catch these these adult humor.
Yes, I
that's
snuck
like,
them in there.
It's like, oh, I get it now. But like, I don't know, if I was a kid, I probably would just write it from my
right,
head.
exactly.
But like that, I feel like Shrek does like a good job of like
yes.
tailoring to like kids, but then also like adults watching.
Yeah, and I also just think it's cool because then it gives the film another life. You know, you can come back to it and experience it in a new way, and I feel like it's so. I just think that's to be able to experience a body of work two completely different ways just based on your age. That's wild to me, and I think that like a film like Shrek or films that do that, it's cool that you can, or even a show like Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah.
Like you come back to it as an adult, and it still stands the test of time. You can learn things that you may not have seen watching it as a kid, which I think is super valuable.
Yeah, the Uncle Iroh philosophy.
Uncle Iroh, like, please
Right.
from the vibe.
I think too that also those kind of shows or movies, like they just have longevity because of the context and content of what's being said or performed and stuff. So
Yes,
I
agree.
think that something that people can take away too, maybe from that. But
Yeah, no, I agree. And I feel like that comes from just like good research and good preparation. I feel like in the landscape we're in now with the introduction of AI and everything needs to be quick and fast and cheap, like we just are losing the value of things marinating and taking time and like actually like thinking about things.
Right.
I feel like that's a big missing piece is like that intentionality, which don't get me wrong, there's filmmakers who are still very intentional, but I do think
we're in the world of like just like what is it called? Like the attention span is getting shorter.
Mm-hmm.
But I think people still do appreciate like going into like the movie theater still,
I think so
and
too.
like I think that I don't know, maybe people are starting to maybe appreciate those more. And I know there's like been a decline in like going to the movie theaters, but now with like certain movies coming out, I feel like people are starting to like attend it more.
No, I just saw this article about Backrooms, about that one 20-year-old director.
Yeah.
Majority of the audiences that saw that film were Gen Z. And so, which is interesting because it's like there has been the decline in movie going, but it seems that there's a correlation between young filmmakers and young moviegoers, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, I think it's super important to kind of like, I don't know, maybe see where the shifts are happening.
Yeah.
And also too, if you are like a filmmaker or director, to be able to be intentional and slow down your process too, and to make something that's meaningful and connects with people, like you said.
Yeah.
Going back to like your film, I guess, like you said, it's been 4 years in the making. Like, how has that process been with every year, and like, are you taking your time and like just like really, I guess, taking it in, like experiencing it and just being present with your project? Like, how has that been?
Yeah.
Every year?
Good question. I mean, I will say part of what made it so long is that the first thing we produced was a trailer. And so we produced a 1 minute, 30-second proof of concept trailer after the first year, so from 2023 to 2024. And then we did a Kickstarter campaign to like raise the production budget for the full film. And so it's really been 2 years since we've been on production for the full short film. But yeah, the first year was designing the characters, designing the world, honing in on the story, and then creating that proof of concept trailer. And I was one that edited that together because we had storyboarded the full film based on the first script that I wrote. And then I just took shots from that film and then put it together to create a trailer. And then from there, once we raised the budget, I kind of like went back to the script and looked at like, okay, what can I add? What can I change? And the script actually changed quite a bit.
Yeah.
It changed quite a bit since when I first started working on the film, which is good because I think having all that time and letting it marinate for as long as it did let those ideas come to me when they felt ready. And I do think there's value in, like, I think there's value in waiting for ideas to find you, but I think on the other side of that, you need to meet them there first. Because even like when I wrote the script, I was sitting on this idea for 2 years, but when the moment I started writing, it all just like, it came. And I had another experience like that recently where I had another idea for a project, sitting on it for 2 years again. I don't know why 2 is the magic number.
Yeah.
And then I wrote a treatment for it, and then it just like flew out like magic. And I was like, all this time, I was doing all this planning of like what the story should be, what I wanted to say, when really what I need to do is just write it and see like what would come from that experience. But anyways, back to the film. First year, trailer. Then the second year was after the Kickstarter campaign, we started piecing the film together. And so from like 2024 to 2025, we expanded the team a little bit, brought some people on. By the end of that year, so by the end of this past year, we like finalized the original music that's in the film. We did a lot of revisions. That was another thing too.
Yeah.
After doing all the storyboards, I had like test screenings in December of, I want to say of 24. And I sent it to, actually, let me go back a little bit further. Before I started working on the trailer, I got a grant from my college to produce this project. And so that grant also paired me with a mentor. And so that mentor, his name is Mark Osborne. He was also a very key person to like bounce ideas off of and get feedback from. And so when we finished the first iteration of the animatic, he was one of many people that I sent it to just be like, what's working, what's not working. And he gave me great feedback. But it did require me to go back to the drawing board a little bit and like either add scenes, take away scenes. I think the biggest thing that I needed to address was just like the overall pacing of the thing. I think I have feature film tendencies when I write short film scripts where I'm trying to like, have all these moments.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that he really like pointed out to me is that it's a short film. There's not that much time. And it would probably be more impactful to grow to like one really important moment instead of trying to have like moment here, moment here, moment here, moment here, moment here.
It's kind of like hard too because you have so much experience, so many things you want to showcase.
Exactly.
So, but there's like maybe like he said, like there's that one moment that matters probably the most. Right?
Yeah, and there is. It's like when he really pointed that out, I was like, you're right. There is one moment that does matter the most in this film, and so building to that moment became my priority. But yeah, so year one, trailer, Kickstarter campaign, raised the budget. Year two, finished the animatic, but then tons of revisions. And then year three, which we're on right now, is I finally think we're at a point where there's no more revisions to be made. And now we're in like the production phase of like actually animating, or we'll soon to start animating and like making the film.
Mm-hmm. How do you map out a short film for 3 years, 4 years? Are you learning along the way, or was your mentor like, hey, you need to like plan for these phases? How do you organize a short film?
Good question. I definitely did not map out 3 years in advance. It was very much like on the fly. I mean, what I will say is I am not someone that likes to jump into things without at least having researched it a little bit. Sometimes that could be a problem because my research serves as procrastination when I'm like, I do need to start. But I talk to a lot of people who work in animation or who work in animation production, and I ask questions like, how do you organize your pipeline? What makes things work smoothly for you? Or I have friends who, on the other side, are animation artists. I'm like, what do you like? What do you notice in productions that work well? What are things that don't work? And so I did a lot of just like research that way, just having conversations with people in my community who either work in animation as an artist or on the production side of things. And that quite honestly laid the foundation for how I approached the production. But I would definitely say it was in phases. So like I made a schedule for producing the trailer. And then after that, I made a schedule for I basically would make schedules for like different departments. So like the music team has a schedule. The background painting team has their own schedule. And so now, well, actually, last year I was a little bit more full. I wasn't as like
Right.
every single week deliver something. I was a little bit more flexible and free flowing, which honestly I don't think was a bad thing because there were quite a few people on the team who had to like step back for a little bit for personal reasons and then came back on. And so I think that flexibility was really valuable that last year because it allowed things to kind of just like move at their own pace. It was a slower pace than what I wanted. However, I think it was the exact right pace it needed to be so that we could hit the ground running this year. And so now this year I'm a little bit more like, this week this is due, this week this is due, this week this is due. And so I've planned it out to the rest of this year. But yeah, it's been different each year just in terms of what the focus has been. But I think moving forward, if I were to produce another film from scratch, I do think I would want multiple year planning in advance before getting started.
How do you keep everyone's energy?
Mm.
You know, like you're on year 2.
Yes.
Some people who have bring personal things and they need to take a break, and then year 3, getting everyone's energy back up to now hit the ground running. Like how do you like be able to like just be able to like motivate people to and like I know there's that why everyone has that goal, everyone that shares the same goal, but yeah, like how do you get people back into it now?
That's a great question. I will say it helps that not everyone is working on the film at all times. I would say I'm the only one who has contributed all 3 of these past 3 years. A lot of people are on and off. So like if you are doing this role, you'll be working like for 6 months consistently and then you're kind of like offloaded. And then you might come back later in the process. But yeah, most people, I think it helps that they aren't working like a year at a time. There's people, I kind of like stagger people's working so that there's always something happening, even if not everyone is working at the same time. And so I think that's one thing that helps. I also think I'm very flexible just in terms of like ideas. And like I like when people add their own things to the work. And I think that also is energizing for people because it's like you're not just like doing what I tell you. You're taking what I gave you and then adding to it, expanding it. And I think for artists that's just exciting. It's always more exciting for someone to give you a brief and give you still a little bit of creative control versus like this is my strict vision, you must do exactly as I say. Which don't get me wrong, it can be nice to have, that clear of a vision. But I think for this project, I really liked, especially because like quite a few people on my team are actually Nigerian as well. And so I kind of liked, or even West African, and I like the idea of people bringing their own sensibilities or like cultural nuances to the project. There's been a couple times where I give very little direction and I'm like, here's the general overview of what, like, for example, for animation. In our trailer, there's a scene where they're in the marketplace and it's all these different people doing different things. And the animator who did it, he's fantastic. He's based in Nigeria and he's been on the project for a while now and he's so talented. But I remember I didn't give him much direction. I was just like, it's a marketplace scene and people are doing things. And, because he's from Nigeria, I don't have to tell you what that looks like. You're there, exactly. And so he was able to just create that scene from that general foundation. And so I think that is exciting to people of like, you're not just a cog in a machine. Like you are also an artist who can bring your own creative ideas to a project. And so I think that's one thing that I would imagine is what keeps people excited. And I also, I would hope to like people just like the idea and like are just interested in contributing to the story.
I think too, like if you're especially in a creative lead position, it's such I don't know, the type of leadership that you have to be able to like, if you have like a bunch of collaborators working with you to be able to champion their artistry and to be able to have empathy and be in their shoes and understand like as an artist, how they're feeling if they're invested in a project to have their voice be heard or their perspective or their input creatively, artistically to be heard. And I think that's something like as a leader that we should have more of, especially in the film industry.
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes it's just like like you said, you don't want to be like a tyrant.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
but there were probably some points where you have to be a little bit more like that, but that flexibility of like,
Absolutely.
I trust you.
I trust
Yeah.
you. That's a big
Yeah,
one.
so
Yeah.
that's huge. But yeah, I'm just gonna wrap up the podcast. Thanks so much for chatting with me. It's good to know you or get to chat with you about everything that you're working on and getting to know you more as like a director person. And yeah, tell people where people could find you.
Yes.
What can they expect from the film?
Yes, we can find me. I feel like my primary social media platform is Instagram at Uzo the artist, Uzo the artist. And then in my bio, I have an Instagram for Zoma Studios and Zoma House. So both of those are in my bio, but at Zoma Studios and at Zoma House. And what they can look for, more events at Zoma House.
Yeah.
They can look for, with the film, hopefully we finish it this year. And it's my goal to submit it to film festivals. And so hopefully that'll be a part of the journey as well. And then at some point, I do want to screen the finished film at Zoma House as well. Maybe like finishing off the festival run just like back home, I think would be really fun. So yeah, that's definitely what people can look out for. And then, I have a website, Ngwu, UZONGWU.com, and that just gives an overview of all the things that I do and all the lovely people I work with, and it gives an overview of Zoma Studios and Zoma House and just me as an individual artist. So, yes.
Yay.
Yay.
That's all right.
We did it.